Good morning, all. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going through the PHL Pre-K contracts training for FY24. I'm Carrie Lee. I'm the contracts manager for the PHL Pre-K intermediary at PHMC. You'll also hear from our contracts coordinators who will help lead us through this presentation, Brittany Maines and Theo Margulies. Just a few housekeeping items. Please have your phones and microphones muted. Type any questions into the chat box. We will have an opportunity. We'll be stopping at certain points in the presentation to take any questions. So please put them in the chat box. This presentation is also being recorded. We will send the recording and slides out in the weekly newsletter that comes out on Friday. And then our agenda for today. So you'll first hear from the Office of Children and Families. Then we'll tell you a little bit about PHMC as the intermediary. Then you'll hear from the Quality Support Center, which is Spark. But we'll spend the majority of time today on contract deliverables and going over each deliverable. This session is geared more towards returning providers as well. And then we'll round out with next steps and some reminders about deadlines. First, I will throw it over to Brittany Eady from the Office of Children and Families.
Thank you, Carrie. Good morning, everyone. And I hope everyone is having a great summer thus far. Again, my name is Brittany Eady, and I am the PHL Pre-K Provider Engagement Coordinator here at OCF. And we're going to get into the PHL Pre-K program history. PHL Pre-K launched in 2017, and it is funded by the Philadelphia Beverage Tax, also known as the Soda Tax. We started out with 2,000 students at 89 locations across the city. We are now currently serving 5,250 students at 227 locations. We offer 5.5 hours of daily education for 180 days. And as it stands since the inception of the program, we have serviced 16,000 plus children and families. Our mission is to increase access to quality early learning by offering free pre-kindergarten programs to children regardless of their family's income. Our commitments are as followed: increasing center quality and providing instructional resources, offering health resources and conducting developmental screenings, supporting staff growth and development, promoting kindergarten registration and transition activities. This year, we have added 950 new seats at 51 new locations in 237 priority neighborhoods. While the seat expansion is very important, the commitment to those seats being high quality seats is what the program is all about. Children and families in PHL Pre-K. 85% of our children identify as non-white. 70+% are below 200% of the federal poverty line. 15% speak a language other than English at home. We are operating in 43 zip codes and 64 locations with 1,400 seats in priority neighborhoods. And this is our administrative team. PHMC is our administrative intermediary. Spark is the Quality Support Center, and our program partner is the School District of Philadelphia. Thank you. I'm going to pass it back to Carrie.
Thanks, Brittany. Now you're going to hear from Joy Weems to tell you a little bit about PHMC.
Thanks, Carrie. So the role of the administrative intermediary includes key functions. One is the administration of contracts with providers. So we issue the notice of awards as well as assign seat allocations and issue the full contract. We're also responsible for enrollment oversight, meaning that we oversee the enrollment approvals, verifying enrollments, monitoring enrollment benchmarks and targets, and also overseeing the reallocation process if necessary. We're also responsible for flow of funds to providers, meaning that we oversee the process of making sure that you get timely payments based on an approved invoice. And then we also provide supplemental funding in the spring, depending on the underspending of the year. PHMC also manages the data collection and analysis of the data that comes from the system. And this includes really looking at the data, analyzing it, interpreting it, and then pulling out the trends of the data so that we can use those trends to support you as providers. We also monitor fiscal and compliance, meaning that we will support you with all your fiscal reports, whether it's a mid-year, a year-end, or your audits. And then we also monitor that you are meeting the contract deliverables. PHMC is also very intentional about collaborating with other organizations, such as the Office of Children and Families, the Spark Quality Support Center, and also organizations outside of PHR Pre-K to ensure that we're providing the best support possible. And finally, we oversee program reporting, whether that's program level data or child outcomes data. We actually, again, look at that data, pull out the trends, and use those trends to be able to support the system. As Kerry said, I'm Joy Weems. I'm the Provider Services Manager. And so I support the Provider Services team, which includes the Provider Service Specialist that is assigned to every provider. We engage in high quality provider services by being your primary contact. If you have any questions or concerns regarding the system or the program, please reach out to your assigned specialist. And if they're not the ones to help you, they will direct you to the right person or organization. Our team also makes sure that you get accurate and timely enrollment-based payments. Again, this is done by having an approved invoice every month. Invoices are sent on the 1st of the month, and we ask that you submit your invoices by the 10th of the month. However, I recommend that you submit your invoice probably around the 5th or 6th. In case there are any discrepancies, we can resolve those discrepancies and still make sure that you get your payments on time. Your specialist will also provide clear definitions of the PHR Pre-K contract expectations. The contract is a very long document, and sometimes you may need support in understanding the deliverables. And so your specialist can support with that. Your specialist will also provide site visits and monitoring. We provide at least one in-person site visit every quarter, and then we also provide monthly site visits. We also are available to meet with you or to communicate with you as needed. And finally, during the site visits or the monthly check-ins, if we identify that you need support in meeting a deliverable, we will make a referral to the Quality Support Center. Or we may make a referral internally if it is a task that can be supported by PHMC. And finally, please reach out to your provider service specialist with any questions that you have. They are available to support you. Next slide. And now I'll share some contact information regarding the intermediary. If you have general inquiries, please email the PHR Pre-K at phmc.org email address. And our main number is here on the slide. If you are having some challenges with childcare, please email the childcare service desk at servicedesk@phmc.org. The hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. If you have site-specific contract questions, please again reach out to your assigned specialist. If you are not able to get in contact with your specialist, please contact the coordinator that is supporting that specialist. And you should have the name and number for that coordinator. And for families interested in enrolling, please email PHR Pre-K referral@phmc.org. And our intake number is here on the slide. The hours of operation for our intake line is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. Thanks, Kerry. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Joy. And now you are going to hear from Tracy from Spark Quality Support Center.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Tracy, as Carrie said, from the Spark Quality Support Center. I know many of you. I recognize your names on the screen. We can go to the next slide. The Spark Quality Support Center is here to provide support to every provider. So every provider has a coach. And this slide shows you our services. So our coaches support you to engage with our specialists who have content expertise around things like health and wellness and business. We have a knowledge center where we compile resources, where you can find on your own, resources that support your work, or you can work with your coach to understand how to utilize our Knowledge Center. We have a help desk where you can chat us live or call us or email us and get a pretty immediate response if you're just trying to figure out how to navigate our services. And our events calendar, which will show you what it looks like in a moment if you haven't seen it, allows you to enroll in or register for yourself or any of your staff for PQAS certified trainings. And many of our trainings support contract deliverables and the successful completion of those, the creation of systems that help you or your staff meet those contract expectations. And of course, we have other trainings that go beyond that into best practices in the classroom. So we can go to the next slide. And specifically, we have a number of ways we can support you in meeting your contract deliverables. And one of those ways is to really go ahead and respond to your coach's email. If they haven't sent it, they will be soon, asking for an initial site visit so they can meet you and your staff if they haven't or didn't last year, do an intake process with you, which is a relatively quick intake form we have that will help us understand your needs. And then we can really help, if it's a need you have, help you set up systems to support all of the contract deliverables throughout the year and establish an understanding of why those deliverables are important to the classroom. Help your staff understand that if that's a need you have. And you'll see on the right a list of some of the ways that our specialists provide our trainings. They can support you. We have trainings related to contract deliverables. Again, the Knowledge Center, sometimes our specialists can come out and support you specifically with something like finances or business development. And then we have a number of special initiatives, so keep an eye out for what those are. Whenever you see the newsletter come out from PHMC Weekly. We can go to the next slide. And just so you have the visual, this is our Knowledge Center. You can see that search engine, the search bar, which is circled in yellow. You can really, it's a really nuanced search engine. So anything you're looking for, you can just go there and put the name in, including many of the resources PHMC provides you and templates. Those will be uploaded on this site. And then the next page slide just shows you our professional development calendar. So I know you can't read the names, but you'll see we really have trainings every single day except for Tuesdays, and they go across different topics related to contracts, but also to best practices in the field. So they're free to you and your teachers. So I encourage you to take a look at this. Go ahead and register. We've got the events on there through at least the first half of the year. So you can go ahead and get those on your staff's calendar. And you can request trainings on your site. So if you know you have a professional development day in the fall, I encourage you to go ahead and go to our website and request trainings. And I think that is all I have to share today. The next slide will just show you our contact information. So go ahead and screenshot that and be in touch with me or with our help desk or your coach anytime you need something from us. We're happy to work with you to meet your needs. I'm going to hand it back to PHMC.
Thanks, Tracy. All right, so let's dive into the PHL Pre-K contract deliverables. Some of this we did go over at the exhibits info sessions, but we know not everyone was able to attend. We wanted to make sure everybody understood the full scope this year. This first slide shows updates to deliverables. There may be a minor change here, such as a due date or a more significant change. We'll go over each deliverable in more detail, but this list of updates includes adhering to health and safety guidance, full day, full year service, developmental screenings, curriculum and outcome assessment waivers, remote learning, suspension and expulsion, data management, and Philadelphia 21st century minimum wage. And again, we'll go into what all those updates are in just a moment. These are the deliverables without any changes. They are licensing and stars in good standing, religious affiliation, growth providers timeline, and moving up to star 3 by the end of the program year, enrollment and recruitment, eligibility and conversion, attendance, curriculum and outcomes assessment, partnering with families, kindergarten transition, health assessment and health standards, requirements around meeting and training participation and complying with monitoring and reporting requests, information about termination, staff qualifications, City of Philadelphia compliance, and those fiscal things around invoice, and fiscal reporting requirements. So now I will pass it over to Brittany, who will start us going into each deliverable.
Good morning. Thank you, Carrie. I will be detailing a portion of the contract deliverables for you all today. And our first deliverable will be the DHS license and compliance regulations. Providers must maintain a Department of Human Service or Philadelphia Department of Education license in good standing for their approved PHL pre-K location. If providers receive a provisional license during the calendar year, they are still able to operate and provide PHL pre-K services through the end of the calendar year. Please also note, providers must contact the contract entity of any significant findings pertaining to their classroom or site location within 30 days of notification. And if any PHL pre-K staff see a violation, they must report it to the appropriate government agency. Rescinding and contract void. A provider's contract can be rescinded or voided for several reasons. And such reasons include the following: receiving a provisional license before the issuance of a PHL pre-K contract document, a negative sanction that results in a facility closing, a violation that may result in the emergency removal of children, or fraud is to be discovered with the obtaining of the DHS license. OCF and the contract entity will need to be notified immediately if any of these instances occur and to support the families for relocation. Providers need to self-report any PA DHS violation within 48 hours to Octal, to PHMC, or the School District of Philadelphia. Such violations would include an injury at a center requiring emergency room treatment or inpatient hospitalization, a death of a child receiving care at that facility, a verified incident of child abuse or neglect, fire safety, pediatric first aid, and/or water safety, all resulting in STAR suspension. Religious affiliation and discrimination. Providers with religious affiliation may still offer programming in accordance to their beliefs. However, they cannot deny a child enrollment based on that religious affiliation. They must also let families choose to opt out of religious programming. And they cannot provide religious instruction during the 5.5 hours of PHL pre-K during the school day. Providers shall not discriminate or permit discrimination against any child, staff member, or potential employment candidate because of race, ethnicity, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity, religion, national origin, ancestry, disability, marital status, familiar status, or domestic or sexual violence victim status. Adherence to health and safety guidance in childcare settings. There has been a change since last year. All references to the COVID-19 have been removed from the PHL pre-K as the COVID-19 emergency ended on May 11th, 2023. Providers, you will still be expected to review and adhere to the health and safety guidance from the CDC, the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, as well as the Philadelphia Department of Public Health concerning any future emergencies that may arise. And providers, you also must still continue to report any positive COVID-19 cases to the Department of Health as well. Program quality. Current STAR 3 and STAR 4 providers need to maintain good standing in STARs. All growth providers must ensure that they are using resources to achieve STAR 3 or STAR 4 and are complying with the deadlines as seen below. Providers need to request designation as STAR 3 no later than June 28th, 2024. Benchmarks will be reviewed with data from the ELRC, and any sites that do not make progress towards their benchmarks may be ineligible to receive PHL pre-K funding beyond this fiscal year. enrollment, and recruitment. Much of this information should be familiar as we reviewed it in enrollment training. But PHL pre-K providers, you do need to develop and maintain an enrollment and a recruitment plan. You need to maintain 100% enrollment as well as have a wait list of eligible children applicants in childcare. You must enroll and discharge children per the requirements and procedures outlined in the FY24 PHL pre-K enrollment provider policy. You also need to work with families to determine if the program is a good fit for the family's individual needs as well as their priorities. And you may not require any additional application information in advance of enrollment in the PHL PK program or in association with the services. This would include requesting fees for supply lists, lunches, trips, or uniforms, etc. All right, so now we have enrollment analysis. Providers, you must meet the enrollment targets. Be at 50% by August 31st, 2023, and then 100% enrollment by September 29th, 2023. Sites that have seats that are vacant for 30 days or more will be contacted and asked to develop a recruitment plan. Referrals may be made to Spark if assistance is needed. Additionally, OCF will determine if and when reallocation of PHL pre-K sites may be necessary, and at that time, current enrollment and waitlist status can be taken into consideration. Slot vacancy and reallocation. As previously mentioned, if slot reallocation happens, PHMC will support families and PHL pre-K eligible children in finding another location. Increases to slot allocations will be prioritized to sites that meet the following criteria. At a star 3 or star 4 level, have 100% enrollment and an active waitlist in childcare. They can attest that the new slots in the classrooms will meet the needs of the PHL pre-K requirements, including staff and child ratios for the qualifications. Please note, all requests for additional seats can be sent to the PHL pre-K inbox at phlprek@phmc.org. Next, we have eligibility, slot conversion, and supplanting. This is one of the trickier areas that you as providers may have questions on. So we just really want to emphasize that you please reach out to your specialist as well as the PHL pre-K inbox with any questions. In respect to eligibility, children are eligible if they are 3 or 4 years old on or by September 1st of the enrollment year, as well as reside in the city of Philadelphia. Children may age into PHL pre-K if they're currently enrolled now as a 2-year-old and will be 3 years of age by September 1st, 2023. Additionally, if a child turned 3 after September 1st of last year and never participated in an additional funding source, such as Head Start or pre-K counts, at their respective PHL pre-K location, then they may enroll.
Thank you.
Slot conversion and supplanting. Children who are age eligible and currently receiving pre-K programming, which is being funded by an alternative source, cannot be converted to PHL pre-K funding. Providers may not convert infant and toddler slots to PHL pre-K slots, as well as convert any existing Head Start or pre-K count slots to PHL pre-K slots. Our next deliverable will be the attendance policy. You as providers must have an attendance policy. Your policy should include overall developing strategies to help you maintain an 85% daily average of attendance. The goal in maintaining at least an 85% for all children is because we know this supports their learning and development. If you as providers are seeing children fall below this level, then we ask that you reach out to the families to understand why and if they need any support to overcome any barriers. Additionally, there needs to be clear procedures that deliver and document the support that would remediate any chronic and consecutive absence issues should they arise. Your policy ultimately establishes a guided support and resources to families when absence are due to hardships. Slots will be held for 30 days for children who have an approved extended absence due to a long-term illness. Providers need to understand that they cannot discharge a child without making every effort to communicate with families and assist in overcoming barriers. With attendance policy comes attendance monitoring. Attendance should be monitored using sign in and sign out like procedures. Providers need to enter attendance weekly into Childware, as well as keep supporting documentation for compliance purposes. Providers, you need to review their average daily attendance monthly, and if it falls below 85%, such considerations should be made. What challenges might our families be facing? Is this a pattern? How can or will we assist these families? Providers, you need to stick to your policy communications and use the timelines and strategies as a guided resource. Some additional attendance monitoring specifics. If a child is expected to be absent for more than 30 days or has consecutive absences approaching the 30-day mark, you as providers should notify the contract entity to review the case. Providers will be asked to submit documentation of regular communications with family during their period of absences. It is recommended that a variety of communication strategies be used even if the family is non-responsive. The contract entity, intermediary, and OCF will review these cases on a case-by-case scenario. Please note that in these circumstances, the PHL pre-K invoicing policy will still apply. And if or when a child is discharged, providers will have 60 days to fill the seat. Excuse me. Failure to comply with these steps may result in PHMC not continue to fund the PHL pre-K slot and provider not receiving payment. Next deliverable will be the program calendar, which is also one of our exhibits. Providers should schedule a minimum of 180 days of PHL pre-K services between September 1st, 2023 and June 30th, 2024. Please note that early dismissal days do not count toward the required 180-day criteria. Additionally, providers, any snow days or scheduled cancellations will need to be made up to ensure that you are meeting the full number of days required in the contract. The daily schedule. There should be 5.5 hours per day of developmentally appropriate instructional time in each PHL pre-K day. This needs to include at least 60 minutes of physical activity as well. However, what's not included in the 5.5 hours will be arrival, departure, and nap time. If any part of the PHL pre-K day occurs before 7:30 or spans after 4:30 p.m., providers, you will need to inform your specialist as well as provide a written request to PHMC for approval prior to your classroom opening. And all your requests should be submitted to the PHL pre-K inbox. Again, that's phlprek@phmc.org. Now we have full day and full year services deliverable. It is recommended providers that you partner with agencies for full day and full year services. This will help assist families with access to additional funding or childcare needs that they might have. Providers, you should maintain a Child Care Works contract to implement before or after care services. Child Care Works. As just mentioned, the importance of you providers maintaining a Child Care Works contract is if family needs full day, full year services, then they need to reach out to the CCW in order to be determined if they are eligible. They can apply through the Compass portal or they can contact their local ELRC center. We really want to emphasize providers that you should only fill out the PHL pre-K enrollment verification form after the family has been determined eligible by CCW and also selected your site as their location. This has been a change from last year, excuse me, as many providers were completing each form for every child enrolled. We just want to emphasize that they want to be determined eligible first from CCW. And the last deliverable I will be detailing for you will be the curriculum. Providers, you need to implement programming based on the required PHL pre-K curriculum. And the creative curriculum kits have already been delivered for some of the new sites and the classrooms, and you should be receiving additional ones by early August, if not already. PHL pre-K teaching staff and program leadership are supported through quality support service that are available from the Spark Quality Support Center. The School District of Philadelphia providers can access supports as needed from the district instead. If providers intend on using a supplemental curriculum, creative curriculum still must be the primary curriculum and in use for 180 days of PHL pre-K services. The supplemental curriculum needs to be on the OCDL list of curricular alignments to the 2014 Pennsylvania Learning Standards for Early Childhood, as well as respond to documented developmental needs of the children in the class. And please note that this list was recently updated and is effective as of July 1st, 2023. So now we're going to take a break for questions before we have Theo comes on to continue on with our deliverables. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? You can put them in the chat box or feel free to unmute. We'll have a couple other opportunities. Sure, you can go ahead with your question. Medina, did you want to unmute? Let's see.
She had everything.
Let's see, let me ensure. Okay, if you aren't able to unmute, would you be able to type it in the chat box?
Yes, hello.
Oh, yes, there. Yes.
Hi, how you doing? Good
Good, how are
morning.
you?
Thank you. Well, I was trying to see, because I see that you guys had on the slideshow about the slots that's allocated if you are a Keystone Star 3 or 4. So my question is, we recently have become a Keystone Stars 4 last month, and I know you said to send the email over. So how does it work if we already have like a certain amount of slots allocated to us, and then when we send the email over telling them that we are Stars 4, how does it work with knowing if we would like receive something back to say, hey, this is the amount of slots that we could get, or how does that work?
So if we do accept requests for additional seats, those are prioritized by those on the previous slide that we mentioned. If you're a Star 3 or 4, demonstrate PHL pre-K compliance, you should be 100% enrolled and have an active wait list. It also is determined by OCF and their priorities as well of where they'd like to put seats.
Okay.
If there are any seats that become available, we would reach out to providers to get a sense of if they had the classroom available and the staffing available as well to accommodate new seats. But that's only if we have any unallocated seats. available.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Yes, and congratulations as well for moving up. And so we don't have a certain timeline as well for providing new seats. It's just if there are any allocated seats through the program year, then we will reach out to folks that ask for new seats.
Thank you.
Sure. Is there an immediate training for new providers following this? And are you referring to contracts training? There is another session this afternoon at 2:00, and also one at tomorrow at 10:30. I'm not sure if there are any other curriculum or any other required new provider trainings right now. Maybe Spark can check in on that, if that's what you're referring to, Lisa.
Yeah, I was just looking for the link to the flyer. I have the flyer, but I need to find it online, and I'll put it in the chat as soon as I do, because there are a number of trainings, and the event calendar also has all those in. So actually, I'm going to put that link in for everyone, the event calendar, and you can look at all the trainings that are, and some of them are required contract, but some are also just to support you, or intro to creative curriculum or teaching strategies. So I'll put that link in the chat in a moment.
Thanks, Tracy. And Lisa did confirm she's talking about contracts training. So yes, that session, it's not immediately after this session. It's this afternoon at 2:00, and another one for new providers tomorrow at 10:30.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Sure. Just 1 second to just follow up on Lisa's question. If you are you're a current provider, but you have a new site as well, this should cover you. If you attended this session, that should cover you. You don't have to attend the new provider one. I'm sorry, it was in Latrice. You can go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
With the creative, I just wanted to know when we, I know I have to purchase the creative curriculum cloud if I would like that, but I have 2 sites. I was just wondering if I can put all of the kids on one site when I purchase the cloud.
I will need to look into that and can get back to you. We have Latrice. Okay, I've taken down your information and we'll follow up by
Okay.
email, okay?
Thank
Sure. Okay, I think that we've got to the questions right now. Let's keep moving to make sure we get you out on time, okay? But please, if you have more questions, type them in and we have more opportunities.
All right, so I will be going over the next contract deliverables. And so the first one that I will be going over is Teaching Strategies Gold, which is what will be used for outcomes assessments. So for TSG outcome assessment, observation records for each PHL pre-K child must reflect all months of service when children are in care and each domain of development as outlined in Teaching Strategies Gold. Each child should have a minimum of 1 documented observation in every dimension per checkpoint timeframe, and a minimum of 2 family conferences to discuss progress and educational goals. The record of child progress using TSG Online's data tool should be reviewed twice per year, and the checkpoints have changed this year. Last year, they were fall and spring, and this year they will be winter and spring. For returning providers, TSG licensing will roll over from last year and is effective this month in July. For new providers, licensing will be effective August 1st. Your account will be covered by PHMC for only your PHL pre-K children, and you should receive an email shortly to be able to access your account. It's important that your contact form is up to date if you are a new provider, because we ask who your TSG administrator is in that contact form, and we want to make sure that we are giving the correct person access. So the next deliverable is the developmental screening. We wanted to give you a heads up that we will be moving to ASQ online this year, so you can record developmental screening information there. This applies only to your PHL pre-K seats. We've already received some questions asking for clarification about this, so we just wanted to emphasize that ASQ Online only applies to PHL pre-K seats. ASQ3 and ASQ SE kits have already been ordered for new classrooms, and Spark coaches will be coordinating delivery with you in the coming weeks. You will need to complete at least one developmental screening reflecting all domains of development for each child annually within 45 calendar days of the child's program start date. You need to share information with families within 14 days of completion and refer any child with an identified concern to Elwyn for assessment. Providers will also need to document their referral to Elwyn and the receipt of parent permission to refer within 7 calendar days of the conversation with the family. And you will need to rescreen per tool guidelines if there is a concern identified. For children with IEPs, they are exempt from this requirement if their current IEP is in their file and is also in childware. For children with an IEP, programs might be asked to complete an ASQ SE if there is a request of ECMH services. So this is just a sample of what a timeline might look like for a program depending on the child's start date. For example, if the program starts on September 5th, then the developmental screening should be completed by October 20th, which is within 45 days of start. Then you should share results with families by November 2nd, which is 2 weeks after the completion, and refer to Elwyn by November 9th, which is 7 days after you've had the conversation with families. So the next deliverable is I'm going to go over waivers. As mentioned in the exhibits info session, waivers can be submitted to use an alternative curriculum or tool. Waivers must be submitted to PHMC and be approved prior to the program start. Links to waivers were sent through the weekly provider update and need to be submitted by July 31st. For curriculum and assessment waivers, there is a change since last year. Providers no longer need to participate in PHL pre-K for a year to be eligible to submit a waiver. And for developmental screening waivers, programs need to participate in PHL pre-K for a year in order to be eligible. Alternate curriculum or tools must be on the appropriate OCDL lists, which are listed right here on the slide. Providers that are approved for waivers are expected to be responsible for meeting PHL pre-K benchmarks. They are also expected to cover any training costs, TA, or coaching needed to implement it within their program. And waivers may be rescinded if providers aren't able to maintain 100% compliance in meeting benchmarks. So the next deliverable is remote learning. So PHL pre-K services are expected to be offered in person for FY24 and have a remote learning plan in preparation for any emergency closures. A program may not offer remote learning without an approved remote learning plan. The change here this year is that you do not need to have a remote learning plan if you do not plan on offering remote learning. However, if you do not offer remote learning during any emergency closure, then you may not bill for those closed days. Remote learning plans will require approval by OCF prior to the program start. All providers must confirm their plans for remote learning in the Cognito form by August 15th, 2023. In the form, a provider will say whether they are submitting a new plan, updating their existing plan, uploading their school district approved remote learning plan, or indicating that they are not offering remote learning. We will send a link to that form in follow-up communications. And even if you are not planning on offering remote learning, you will still need to go into that Cognito form to let us know that you do not plan on uploading a remote learning plan. The next deliverable is family agreement. So it is important for providers to have a written agreement with families that outlines services to be provided, fees associated with any services outside of PHL pre-K, and expectations of families. So there's a DHS template available here on this slide, and this is also a list of what must be included in the family agreement. Providers should communicate regularly with families or caregivers using various methods. This includes creating a system for reporting about a child's progress and getting feedback, using languages and platforms that families can access, and providing ways for them to help in planning events, trainings, or workshops. Providers should have a family grievance policy that outlines the process to address their concerns. And this is an exhibit that you should be submitting soon if you haven't already. Providers should also work with OCF to deploy resources to PHL pre-K families and support the distribution and completion of the year-end family satisfaction survey. So the next deliverable is the inclusion policy. So you should have an inclusion policy in your family and staff handbook that addresses enrolling a child with special needs, providing direct support through your program and LWIN, staff supports, and your procedure for referrals. Providers cannot deny enrollment or waitlist opportunities to any family eligible for PHL pre-K. Next, we're going to go over suspension and expulsion. Providers are not permitted to suspend or expel a child. You must have a suspension and expulsion policy, which we talked about at the exhibits info session. And this is another exhibit that you should be submitting soon if you haven't already. At the bottom of the slide are the Octal definitions of suspension and expulsion for you to use as a reference. If a provider determines that an enrolled child poses a risk to the safety or well-being of other children or staff, you will need to communicate this concern to PHMC and their contract entity. You should work to develop an intervention or transition plan that engages the family and that supports the well-being and school readiness of the enrolled child. Providers must implement a system of documenting behaviors and strategies to support that child and their family. If folks need support in developing their suspension and expulsion policy exhibit, Sparks Quality Support Center can assist you with that. Also, a change from last year is that we are now requiring a training by the Education Law Center. This training is being offered a couple of times in August, and there will also be more offerings in the fall. This training is part of the system-wide response to the increase in challenging behaviors, and this training is really to help you understand what that law is. Kindergarten transition. So we want to make sure that all providers are engaging families to help them understand their educational options. The School District of Philadelphia has established age requirements for kindergarten eligibility, and transition plans are needed for all children turning 5 by the school district age requirement for the following school year. So kindergarten transition plans need to be created within 60 days of the child's entry date. It will document activities scheduled throughout the program year to support transition to kindergarten and to ensure that the child is registered for kindergarten by June 1st. Kindergarten transition meetings need to be held with families to discuss educational options by January 1st. This is to ensure families receive information about catchment and out of catchment deadlines. And OCF typically develops resources to share with families that include school district and charter deadlines. You will need to confirm kindergarten registration is completed for each applicable child and document where the child will be attending school into childcare by May 31st. So the next deliverable is health assessment. Providers need to verify that at least one health assessment is not over a year old, and documentation should be kept in that child's file. Providers need to participate in initiatives identified by OCF to ensure children enrolled in PHL pre-K have access to health screenings. Children should not be denied access to PHL pre-K or discharged if these screenings are not up to date. Providers should provide nutritious meals and snacks every day and adhere to age-appropriate nutritional requirements from a recognized authority, and providers are strongly encouraged to participate in CACFP for those nutritional requirements. Providers should be familiar with the Philadelphia Nutritional Standards for ECE, which are linked here on this slide. The standards for physical activity, screen time, and offering clean, safe water remain the same from last year. And as a reminder, those standards are offering 60 to 90 minutes of physical activity and limiting screen time to 30 minutes or less per week for children ages 2 or older. Providers also need to offer clean, safe drinking water. Childcare facilities with 13 or more children must test all potable water outlets for lead, and submit results to the Department of Public Health. There's a link on this slide to read more about the city requirement. This state has a program to provide free water testing and expert support to childcare facilities and schools in Pennsylvania. And this link is also on the slide as well. It is also encouraged that providers set goals and develop strategies to ensure that fried foods are not offered more than 2 times per week. So the next deliverable is data management, record keeping, and communication. So providers will use multiple databases as a PHL pre-K provider to enter staff, child, and site level data. To ensure timely and accurate data is collected, providers need to develop systems for data entry, quality assurance, and resource allocation, such as time, staff, and technology. The systems that you will use are Childware for enrollment and attendance, the PD Registry for staff qualification, Teaching Strategies Gold for outcomes assessments, and ASQ for developmental screening. You should think about how you're going to manage keeping these systems up to date as we do monitor them. Okay, the next deliverable is engagement in project and continuous improvement of the system. So to ensure compliance with PHL pre-K deliverables and to remain current with PHL pre-K policies, procedures, and information, providers should attend PHL pre-K sponsored meetings and applicable trainings such as summer trainings, peer learning circles, childware trainings, and other trainings related to PHL pre-K priorities. Curriculum and outcome assessment trainings are required for lead teachers and administrators who have not taken the trainings previously, and there may also be other required trainings added throughout the year. PHL pre-K providers are expected to comply with all monitoring and reporting requests made, participate in quality improvement activities when recommended, participate in the data collection and evaluation activities, including external evaluator near and quality support such as TA or coaching as recommended or directed by OCF or its designees, and participate in at least one in-person coaching visit with the Spark Quality Support Center. So we're going to take another break here to answer any questions.
Okay, there were lots of questions in the chat box specifically about ASQ Online and the change. So nothing has been sent out yet, but we're working on the logistics of that. And we'll be sending out communications very soon about logins and how that will actually work, the specifics of how that will work. So you should be getting emails about ASQ soon. There is a question about, can you start working on ASQs now over the summer in August with the summer children that you have, and we'll need to get back to you on that. So Melissa, I'll take down your question and we can follow up. There is a question. So around Keystone Stars requires that all children have an ASQ, even with an IEP. So who do they follow? We'll double check that standard, but you would follow Keystone Stars. So it's fine to have ASQs for all of them. Can we still use paper version of ASQ and not online? I don't have the specifics of how the online will work right now, so we will be following up soon to let you all know those specifics. And someone else is mentioning that there are requirements around STARS about what you need for ASQs and that you need a paper copy. We'll make sure whatever requirements are in the rollout of ASQ Online align with STARS. Okay. So why don't we move on to the next section, but keep the questions coming, and we will have an opportunity at the end as well to address questions. So I'll be going through the last section here. Let's see. So These are definitions here just for your reference. They illustrate the levels of written notification if there's a compliance concern. Notifications can range from a quality improvement plan that includes action steps and when you need to complete those to a notice of termination. If any of these items on the slide happen, it may result in terminating a contract. So as we mentioned before, failure to maintain good standing for your DHS or PD license, failure to get and maintain appropriate insurance coverages, if a provider has unresolved noncompliance related to a notice of default, or if providers have egregious areas of noncompliance related to jeopardizing the health and safety of children, preventing or restricting access to PHL pre-K services, creating undue hardship for families enrolled in PHL pre-K, compromising PHL pre-K program integrity and public messaging, or impacting the accuracy of payment for PHL pre-K services. And if a provider is terminated, you may be ineligible to reapply until at least 1 year from the termination date, and you would need to reapply in an active RFQ cycle. If a provider does receive a notice of default, they may submit a written appeal that can be submitted within 10 business days of the non-compliance notification. And it should include supporting documentation demonstrating your compliance. OCF, PHMC, and the contract entity, where appropriate, will respond to the written appeal within 20 business days. And final written decision from OCF will be binding. If the appeal is submitted without written documentation showing compliance, the original notice of default and timeline will stand. Here is information on staff qualifications. This again, we shared at the exhibits information session, but wanted to go over again. So for PHL pre-K credentials are aligned with the state's career pathway and are similar to last year. So for a childcare center director or administrator and lead teachers, you must have a minimum of level B on the career pathway. And this also applies to owner operators of family childcare providers acting as a lead teacher. Assistant teachers need to have a minimum of a level A or above. For the school district, those that are directly employees of the school district and are at district locations, that's like school facilities, School District of Philadelphia's facilities, they must meet the staff qualifications set forth by the district. Staff at other school district contracted sites, so those that are community-based providers under the school district entity, must meet qualifications for PHL pre-K for lead teacher, director, and assistant teacher. Here is the same information that I just talked about. The chart on the left-hand side shows that director administrators, family childcare owner operators, and lead teachers need to be at that level B, and assistant teachers need to be at the level A. The chart on the right hand shows the career pathway levels and what providers, what staff need to meet in order to be at that level. So to meet a level A, providers will need to meet just one bullet, and under that's shown here, they either need to hold a current CDA certificate, a current school age credential, or have 9 ECE credits. To meet a level B, again, just one bullet under level B, have a regionally accredited EC focused ASB or AST, an associate's in ECE, an associate's or bachelor's in a related field and have 18 EC credits, an associate's or bachelor's in an unrelated field and have 30 EC credits, or have an elementary ed degree with 12 EC credits. Substitutes must have the appropriate credentials for the PHL pre-K for the position that they're filling. When a sub serves as a lead teacher or an assistant teacher for 90 days or more, providers should develop a quality improvement plan addressing the program staffing plan and strategies for recruiting qualified staff. For family providers, this would be instances where the owner operator does not serve as the full-time lead teacher and has a substitute in a lead teacher role. All staff need to be entered in the PD registry and maintain a verified career pathway level. New hires need to complete their profile and have a verified pathway within 45 days of hire. Now we know there have been some staffing challenges over the years. So to address that, OCF has done some waivers and has those available for directors, lead teachers, and assistant teachers. This also applies to the lead teacher position for family childcare in the case where the family childcare owner operator does not serve as the full-time lead teacher. So in order to apply, you must meet the following criteria on this slide. You must have a verified career pathway level of Rising A that's verified by the PA key. And we view this in the PD registry. Or if at entry level, you must apply for placement at Rising Level A once enrolled in an education program or a course of study. Also must be active in the process of attaining the required EC credits or CDA certificate. And individuals may already be enrolled in an education program, or if not enrolled, they must be enrolled no later than January 31st, 2024. Evidence of enrollment in that education program must be uploaded in the PD registry, and status of enrollment will be reviewed in January. And if we don't see that individuals are enrolled, your waiver may be rescinded. If applying for the assistant teacher waiver, individuals must attain a CDA or 9 EC credits within 1 year from enrollment in the education program. And those individuals, any individuals must meet DHS requirements for the position they're holding. So those that had an approved waiver in the last program year, 2022 to 2023, and have not completed the requirements for meeting the career pathway level prior to September 1st of this year, will need to reapply for a waiver. They'll need to demonstrate that they're still actively engaging in attaining the credential that would help them meet the appropriate pathway. Some information about supporting documentation needed. If you are requesting a waiver, you'll need to upload documentation to the PD registry, demonstrating that you're enrolled in the education program or course of study. Supporting documentation needs to include what's on this slide, the applicant's name, course of study, beginning end dates of the course, number of credits if applicable, and the name of the program and higher ed institution that that the staff is attending. Examples of acceptable documentation are included here, but are not limited to just these on the slide. But you could have an itemized financial billing statement, Rising Stars tuition assistance acceptance letter, teach documentation, transcripts, or a letter from the professional development organization stating verification. Individuals who were staff at PHL Pre-K locations or PHL Pre-K legal entities that may have met prior PHL Pre-K requirements may qualify for a temporary exemption. And those criteria are here. Again, all of this information will be sent out in the provider update for you to review slides as well to reference back to these. But for the director and administrator, family childcare owner operator and lead teachers. So individuals with an associate's or higher in a related field with fewer than 18 EC credits and who were employed at PHL Pre-K legal entity prior to July 1st, 2022 are eligible for that temporary exemption. July 1st, 22 is that date because this was when PHL Pre-K requirements changed to align with the state's career pathway. For assistant teachers, you're eligible if you have at least 6 EC credits, but fewer than 9 EC credits, and you're employed at the PHL Pre-K legal entity prior to July 1st, 2022. These individuals would also need to have a plan in place to ensure they're working towards meeting the current PHL Pre-K requirements. Okay, so moving on to the Philadelphia 21st Century Minimum Wage Benefit. There is an increase this year to $15.71. All providers must comply with this wage benefit and applies only to staff directly related to PHL Pre-K. There are some exemptions, including agencies with 5 or fewer employees, or nonprofits with a contract award of less than $100,000. If you're unable to meet the requirement, you may request a temporary waiver, but that needs to be submitted directly to the city for approval. As Peachell Pre-K providers, you'll need to maintain good standing as a vendor with the city of Philadelphia, fulfill all tax obligations, including city, state, and federal. We do monitor on city tax compliance regularly and send out monthly notices if providers are non-compliant. You'll also need to adhere to the City of Philadelphia general provisions, which is an attachment in the contract. All right, moving on to invoicing. Providers may begin expending anticipated funds in July 2023. However, initial payments will be provided after the first month of service in September. Providers receive $1,000 per approved enrollment if the child has attended at least one day in the month, and invoices can never exceed the total slot allocation. Provider payments are performed monthly using the enrollment count in Childware as well. Invoices are submitted across 10 months through October through July. They're submitted by the 10th of the month following the month of service. And as Joy mentioned in her opening comments, it's recommended that you submit before the 10th of the month. So if there are any discrepancies, those can be resolved before the 10th so we can ensure you get timely payment. Failure to submit invoices by the 10th of the month could result in a quality improvement plan as well. School district providers will be paid based on the terms outlined in the school district provider agreement. Payment to providers will be made within 21 days following the approval of the invoice. And eligibility verification will occur within 60 days of enrollment. There are any discrepancies that recoup will occur for payments made for ineligible enrollments. This is the same as last year. So for this year, those September and October invoicing and payments will be based on the slot allocation. And the first invoicing period will be October 1st. So those invoices will be due on the 10th. Now, there are several levels of review that will occur for fiscal reporting. We do plan to hold a fiscal training session in the fall for providers so we can go over these expectations in more detail, and also we'll detail the financial systems that you should have in place and the Spark resources that are available to support you. But for any fiscal reporting, it is really important that providers should be submitting on time. For the levels of review, first desk review. So PHMC does perform annually a desk review on 10% of a randomly selected sample of providers with annual PHL pre-K revenue below $300,000 or providers that have been identified as having fiscal concerns. The desk review will verify adherence to PHL pre-K billing and fiscal reporting guidelines, and these reviews will be announced annually. For mid-year reports, all providers will be required to submit mid-year expense reports. And for year-end expense reports, PHMC will request year-end expense reports for all providers with revenue below $300,000 that are not selected for that 10% desk review sample. For all those returning providers on the call now, we will be communicating soon about FY23, so last year, fiscal reporting requirements. We'll be communicating about desk reviews, year-end reporting, and also those external reviews as well. So on those external reviews, the requirements for FY24 are similar to last year. Their thresholds are the same. So for providers with $300,000 to below $500,000 in PHL pre-K revenue per legal entity, you'll need to have an external CPA conduct an agreed upon procedure. For providers with $500,000 or more in PHL pre-K revenue per legal entity, you'll need to submit a yellow book audit. Those with $750,000 or more in federal funding will require a federal single audit. If you fall into the categories that need to submit the external review, it's really important that you submit a separate PHL pre-K schedule with your external review. The reporting period should show each program year that is part of the provider's fiscal year. So if a provider's fiscal year ends on December 31st, that covers 2 program years. So you would break out January to June of that 1 year, and then September to December of the other year. The review should show the provider's total operation and as I just mentioned, include that PHL pre-K schedule to show PHL pre-K funding and expenditures. And finally, providers who need to complete external reviews must complete it 3 months from the close of books of their fiscal year and submit it annually by October 30th of the following program year. Extensions, providers may request extensions to PHMC no later than 2 months following the close of the provider's fiscal year. You can receive a 90-day one-time extension if it includes an engagement letter from your auditor, and a 30-day one-time extension may be granted if you do not include an engagement letter from your auditor. But when in the form that you fill out, you'll need to provide a compelling reason for the extension, because we do really encourage these to come in on time. So that was the last of the deliverables. Let's go to the chat to see if there are any questions. Let's see. For any that are having any technical difficulties, again, we will be sending the recording and slides out in the weekly update. Is there waivers for staff enrolled in a CDA program? The requirements. Zakia, let me check back and the requirements and we can get back to you as well. For the minimum wage waiver, is that for programs who have a problem paying the minimum if their criteria is not in line with the approval exemptions? Programs that meet exemption guidelines don't have to do a waiver. I don't believe you do have to do the waiver if you meet the exemptions that are on that slide. It's you'll be requesting the waiver if you don't meet those exemptions. Are there any other questions? Why don't we go to the last slide and please put in any more questions. We're about to close out though. Just a reminder about all of the deadlines that are coming up. Exhibits are due on July 31st in the new system, which is called Open Water. We do have open video tutorial on the Open Water system, as well as we have recordings of the exhibits, info sessions. There are resources as well in there, and exhibits checklist and guidelines. So please check out the provider update if you have not already. Remote learning plans, we'll be sending links out to this soon to fill out a Cognito form. That due date is going to be August 15th. We did send out links to curriculum, assessment, and developmental screening waivers. Those are going to be due July 31st. Staff qualifications waivers. Let's see. So we know for those that have staff currently on staff that they know need a waiver, please get those in as soon as possible. We know folks are still hiring staff, so get those in as soon as possible as well, but no later than 45 days after hire. Also, we have a contact information form that has been running in the provider update as well. We use this to send you all information and for you all to tell us who we should send that information to. So it's really important that you keep that list updated because we always use that form to send information to you to try to get it to the right contact. So please fill out that form by July 31st. And then if you do have any staffing updates through the year, to please update that as well. This is the last training session, contracts training for returning providers. But you are also welcome to attend the new provider sessions as well. They are very similar. We'll have one again this afternoon at 2 o'clock and then another one tomorrow at 10:30. So if there are no more questions, we appreciate you all spending time with us. Thanks so much. We're looking forward to a great PHL pre-K year with you all. Thanks. Send any follow-up questions as well to the PHL pre-K inbox.